Those who do not speak Spanish as their home language, what are your thoughts?
I think the thing we need to be aware of is that cultural lens, because speaking English is a great way to encourage these kids to speak English. However, they have to be properly scaffolded. If you don't have just that goal to be just a little more difficult so they feel like they can achieve, it's really disheartening. And so I think with the EL teacher going into that and then being able to work with classroom teachers to also scaffold, which is, again, it's the time asking classroom teachers to scaffold. There's a little bit of frustration because their load is already so heavy. It's like, oh, could we add this one more thing? But I have to tell you, with that whole getting thrown in with the IEPs, I took a leave once and I sat in this classroom. It was a co-taught class, and I was like, man, I love this class. I am feeling so comfortable in this class. And I realized, I looked around, 75% of the class was male Latino heritage speakers. And this basically was a step above remedial, this class was. And at the time I was getting my EL certification, I went to my teacher and I said, what? I mean, I'm comfortable in this class because everybody looks like me. But at the same time, I'm like, what's going on here? And she said, well, the standard is 7 to 10% across the board. 7 to 10% of any of your populations may fall into considered a special education, that traditional setting. It's like when you start getting above that, we need to start looking at what are the similarities, what's going on with this particular group of people and why are there so many. And I said, because we have a bunch of heritage speakers who are not traditionally taught Spanish in there. They just listen to it, which means listening to English. The sounds are different. The spelling's different. And I was like, oh my giddy aunt. Wow.
So you got it. So again, I'm not an EL certified individual. So you're going to have to explain to us why you do not have to speak the language in order to be a part of the EL program. Because I assumed if I have Spanish speaking students, oh yeah, you want to get a Spanish speaking EL teacher in that space. So give us a reason why not necessarily you have to have that same language.
Well, the thing is, you can. I mean, it's very nice. In the situation that I'm in right now, I am the only Spanish-speaking adult on faculty, and this is a large school. And when a teacher comes in and looks at the understanding of the student, you'll know right away as far as, okay, these are the types of things would we communicate. These are the levels we need to communicate at. For example, my one student that I had at my last leave, who was in the 4th grade, she read at a 2nd grade level, but her speaking was higher. We were able to speak a lot more. Whereas the one kid who had just come from Brazil, we were doing a lot of pictures and a lot of, drawings, hand raise. Can I go to the toilet? So starting, it's just, you meet them where they are, and then you set the bar just a little higher so success can be achieved. And unfortunately, the classroom teachers don't have that. And if they do, anybody out there, I'm excited for you. That's great. So most everybody just has the heavy class loads with all the IEPs and all the everything. And oh, by the way, you need to make sure you're drawing pictures for Johnny over there. And the teacher's like, how am I even going to do that?
That kind of leads me to my next question, Lily, because like you said, there is a shortage out there. And so a lot of us teachers who want the best for our kids, I've had these conversations with teachers who are stressed out. It's like, I want to help this child. This child has been passed on every year. They're in 7th grade. They're in 8th grade. They get pushed on. They just get pushed on. And now I want to be able to challenge them and high expectations, rigor, all that. I want to do that. But the language is a challenge for me. What are some strategies that you can provide to teachers, educators out there where there isn't that support, those resources? What are some things that we can do in a classroom?
The first thing, get to know your kid. What do they like? Start working on those.
How do we do that?
Well, you just you start off it's going to depend on your level. Is it someone like my kid from Brazil and it's like, pictures. I drew a picture of someone running and he smiled and I'm like, oh, do you like to run? He's like, yes. I'm like, okay, he likes to run. Let me incorporate running. I mean, it's 2 or 3 questions of, I know anime is huge. Picture, do you like anime? Do you like sport? Because as soon as you can get that connection, you can build on the vocabulary that they like. And then that encourages, now granted, that's one section of vocabulary, but they can see that you're invested in who they are and not, oh, you are person A and you are reading at level whatever. I need to get you to whomever. So for example, in my Brazil kid example, first grade, we were struggling with taking other people's things.
Okay.
And the classroom teacher said, hey, when you take him, can you incorporate your lesson with that? So his friend, so he's from Brazil. His table mate was from China. I took them both out. What did we practice? Can I borrow your pencil, please? Pencil, grab the pencil. Okay, they were friends. They did this together. We practiced something very simple. Language skills, also culture, also, oh, I'm interacting with a friend. And they said afterwards, the teacher came back and said, he asked, can I borrow your pencil? I was like, it's the little wins on the little things. Sometimes we get so caught up in, and I don't want to knock state standards, but it's like, what box am I ticking? As opposed to what do you need? And as soon as we find out what they need, and then we look at the boxes to tick and say, oh, I can fulfill this need and this box can be ticked, that's where the workaround needs to be instead of the other way around.
You brought up a good point. I've been doing some research on Hofstede. He has his cultural dimensions, and one of the things he talks about in his research was individualism versus collectivism. What I just heard is you had a student that probably comes from a collectivist background, meaning like they're used to like we're all your pencil's my pencil, you know, that's just kind of the background. So it wasn't like the student is trying to be rude or bully or all those. It's just that's the community that they're coming from. And so now you're teaching them, okay, yes, you can take the pencil, but these are some strategies of how to do so. Sadly, a lot of times those students don't get those opportunities. They get sent out of the classroom, they get sent to the office, whatever it is, and they don't get that support that they actually need because it's just a cultural barrier that's there.
When you look at the monolingual, monocultural population, when they are in admin roles, when they are in teacher roles, and I'm not I don't mean anybody to take offense if you're like, well, I only speak English, I'm a fine teacher. That's great. I totally believe you are. It's just the idea of, because there is that lack of experience, not understanding what it's like. And especially, I mean, I've traveled the world with the cricket. I've experienced a lot of things, but being dropped into a country where you are desperately trying to make sense of anything and not even be able to communicate, I'm really struggling with this concept. There's just a void. And it's interesting because the converse is true. Like if you look at, so for example, in Arizona, I was working with a speech pathologist there, and she said, depending on your culture is where you're going to see the importance of language. So she said the issue is that a lot of times when you're in a high EL population, the admin are so hyperfixed that they're afraid that they're going to be putting this kid perhaps in an IEP and shouldn't. And so there's a lot of kids who should have those accommodations that aren't, because they're saying, oh, but we don't want to put them in there if it is a language difference. I guess glasses you're wearing, you'll see what you need to see. But just, I don't know, just love kids. That's really, love kids, get to know kids, and they'll know that you want to help them. And they're usually 9 out of 10 saying, okay, I'll go with you.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the other piece I would add to it is just have an asset-based mindset in general. If you're coming from a deficit, oh, they're only reading at a second grade, this is 10th grade, or oh, they don't have the skills, they don't know. Like if that's what you're leading with, then that alone right there is not setting the student up for success.
Well, and that's the bilingualism. And I actually wrote a paper on it. It's on Academia. I can send you the link. Because it's that English focus, right? You must speak English. Yes, absolutely. But could we look at, like for these heritage speakers, for example, and we'll take the Spanish population, how many classes are there that are teaching Spanish grammar, Spanish literature, that these kids who just grew up speaking Spanish, they have a whole vacuum of knowledge because they were not traditionally trained in their native language. And when you put that in, as soon as they start making sense of that native language, the English comes like this. Like it's crazy. Because they understand, because the words that they're using, they see the patterns and they understand, and then they're able to apply that learning to English. And then they are truly bilingual. And how much of a blessing is that to our country that is so vast and there are so many languages? If we could have so many certified bilinguals to help bridge that gap, I mean, come on.
It'd be
It's a
amazing.
gift. It's a skill.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I know,
All
mate.
right?
I know. I'm preaching to the choir. I know.
I'm not the one you got to convince, but I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay. All right. So this is kind of in the same lane, but a little different. And I want to get your take on this because we've been talking about it, and let's just say we're defaulting to general population of class. Okay. We haven't brought up honors and advanced classes. So
I can talk about that for days. But yes, let me listen.
Let's go this direction now, because again, we're talking about EL students. Are they, because people have asked me, do you think the student can do an advanced placement class? Do you think the student can take an honors class? So what are your takes? How do you respond to someone that might ask those kind of questions? And what is maybe your experience when it comes to EL students in advanced classes?
Well, I loved how you brought up, if you lead with, well, they can't, it kind of almost colors the question. It's like, well, okay, if you're asking what are the concerns, I've got a kid right now who's brilliant, and the language difference, it just hasn't been handled well, quite honestly. And it wasn't till the job college fair that I was pulling things up. I'm like, oh, you know what college do you want to go to? And she looked at me and said, I can go to college. I was like, yeah, well, why not? And she's like, oh, I didn't ever think I could. No one told her she could go. They just figured, oh, well, here you are, you're struggling. We'll be happy to just, move you on and be happy with that. And so we're in the process of getting a pathway for her so that she can continue studying. The answer is yes. Absolutely. Take a look at where they are, scaffold that up. You've got brilliant kids with a brilliant gift. And if you want to talk about problem solvers, they're all problem solvers. Why? They've had to figure out a way to get through the trials that have been handed to them based on, I'm living in a language that it's not my first one. I got to make this happen.
So should we encourage students to take advanced placement classes?
Yes, because the issue is, like, for example, let's take my class of male heritage Spanish speakers. If they're in remedial English, okay, that sets them up for what? Are they going to say, okay, next year you're going to take English honors? No, they're like, wow, this group of kids, they just can't get this. We're going to give them the next thing. And so when it comes to ACT, college placement, all that stuff, they are automatically filtered out. They don't have that because of the misplacement in the schools. The ripple effect is huge.
Okay. I like that. Thank you for clarifying that. So if anybody asks me, should I encourage students? Personally, in certain situations, especially when it comes to like dual credits, for example, like I feel like it's gatekeeper. A lot of people will only just invite certain students to take their dual credits or the advanced placement class. They don't necessarily offer that or invite all students. I've seen that a lot, and I just don't want our EL students to be part of that group that doesn't even know that these classes exist or aren't encouraged to take these classes.